No one understands the feelings and the emotions, and may I say the excitement about being a donor if you haven't done it.
When I started it, I wasn't thinking about doing it for a child.
I had the most incredible nurse. I still think about her. Anyway, for the first 2 days, I'm sure other people came, but it felt like she was constantly there for me. That's when I had the, what the heck am I doing?
It was pretty straightforward. I mean, we always, the magic key to going home is
Welcome to the Green Table Talk, where we will have open and honest discussion about transplant. I'm your host, Janine Johnson.
Today, we have two amazing people. I just thought, once again, I've got to share this good news. And with that in mind, today's episode is called Organ Love. So the reason why we called it Organ Love is because Heather and Len decided to do something very generous, something very emotional, something that just drives all these thoughts in your mind as to why and how come and, what made you do it. And in the end, they decided to donate. But I'm not going to give you too much of their story. I will let these beautiful people share their story for themselves. So Len, Heather, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm glad you're here to share your story, share your journey. So ladies first, Heather, tell me about yourself. Give me a little background knowledge, share something. Give us a day in the life of Heather before we get to the good stuff. A little day in the life of Heather.
Sounds good. So I'm in my 40s and I'm in Ottawa. I'm a communication strategist and I work for not-for-profit organizations, mostly here in Ottawa, mostly in healthcare, mental health and addictions, and food security issues that directly impact people's lives. And I love what I do. I'm married. I have a giant dog who will probably join us at some point. And that's who I am.
So you are just naturally in the process and in the mind frame of giving. Like that's just, besides this, before the whole donation, you've just been giving continuously is what I'm hearing.
Oh, you're so sweet. I started my career in the for-profit technology sector, and it did not align with my heart or my values. And so switched to the not-for-profit sector 20 years ago. And it is just, everybody in the sector is just a caring place to be and really wonderful people to work with. And we can often see on a very personal level the changes and the difference that it makes. So it's a rewarding on a very intrinsic level.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. And thank you for all you do.
Thanks.
That's amazing. Thanks. So Len, share your story with us. Tell me more about yourself and what do you do?
Sure. And just to touch on Heather's point here, her personality fits that not-for-profit too, that she's just that kind of person as well. But for me, I'm a non-directed living liver and kidney donor. I live in Brampton, Ontario. I'm 58 years old, so kind of a little older, but more than capable of being the donor, fortunately. And I'm married. My wife is retired, and I'm getting close to being retired. We run a family business, and I work from home, which is good or bad, but that's neither here nor there. I also volunteer with Toronto General Hospital, and that's kind of become a love of my life. It's an escape. It's a chance to talk to people, talk to patients, and get out and do things that help out and make me feel good too.
So you have a generous heart as well. That's and I agree what you said about Heather, by the way. I completely agree. That's just her personality. She's just
great for you guys.
Of course. So everyone now, we know that you've donated. Give me a little deeper insight. So what made you decide to donate? Let's start with Heather. How did this come about?
I think it started to come about before I even realized it. You know how Facebook shows you what you posted 10 years ago, memories from this day. And it recently reminded me that I posted 10 years ago about somebody receiving a lung transplant. And so apparently I had started taking an interest before it was the really conscious process. So back in 2016, there was a little kid in the local paper, and her little face staring back at you from the page, and she needed a living liver donor, and it jumped out at me that we have the same blood type. I was eligible to give to her, and like many donors do, I just made that snap decision on the spot. I am going to give to this child. My husband likes to tease me that I applied before actually talking it through with him. And so filled out that application form and started in the process, started down that path. That's what it was like for me. So a very much an unconscious phase of being interested, and then actually taking action on it, many years later.
Wow. So before, this even came to mind, did you know anyone previously, like family members or friends that donated before you?
No, I did not know anybody else who had donated, but I had definitely taken an interest in media stories. So not just, and it was Elaine Campbell's lung transplant that I first posted about, but I remember following a story of some twins in Toronto who needed a living donor. And so those were the stories that were so moving in the media that really had an impact on me. But no, I didn't know anybody personally at that time, although around that time, a family member was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder. And so she could need a kidney at some point. And so my spare kidney is reserved for her.
Wow. See, you're not going to make me cry. That's just giving you the heads up. The both of you, you're not going to make me cry in this episode. You're letting the heads up. So you said it was a snap decision, and you didn't discuss it with your husband. Did you talk about it with anybody? You just literally, that's it, sign me up, and that's it.
So I applied that night. I submitted my application form, which is that 11-page health history, right away. I had great support along the way. My husband is always remarkably supportive. He had questions. He was understandably afraid. He was super supportive, came to appointments with me. And I shared my plans with a very small circle of friends who were also incredibly supportive. Plus UHN, and they did such a good job matching me up with just the right person. They matched me up to a mentor, Sarah, and we have a lot in common. We're still very much in touch. And she, along the way, was that person where I could ask my 2 million questions of, and she could give me tips about things that I hadn't even thought to ask. Yeah, she was terrific.
Wow. So it's good that you've had good support along the way, because that's very important. It's a very difficult journey to go on if you don't have support systems. So that's good that you had a group of people that was there to support you. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was the group of people, like, my close friends who were supportive, and then having, Sarah as a mentor, because no one understands the feelings and the emotions, and may I say the excitement about being a donor if you haven't done it. And so for other people, they don't understand those feelings in the same way. Yeah.
Well, that's a beautiful story. Len, let's hear your story. What's your journey with transplant?
Well, what got me started, I guess it's a little bit serendipitous, I guess. My wife and I were watching a movie at Christmas time, and it's a movie called Once Upon a Christmas Miracle, and it's based on a true story, which is kind of interesting. So the lady gets sick, and a stranger, steps up and donates a piece of his liver to her. And that was my introduction to transplant. I mean, I about it, and that it happens to people. They get transplants, but prior to that, it was just sort of on the back burner. But in the movie, it's a stranger donating to someone, and I thought, so what does that involve? So I started looking it up, and ended, of course, on Toronto General Hospital's website, and I talked it over with my wife briefly. And I got the eye roll. It's like, oh yeah, right. And I said, well, maybe I could try this. Like, trying to feel her out for what she would think of it. She didn't think much of it, quite frankly.
Now, is that because she didn't think you would actually go through with it, or she just thought, when I want to?
Oh no, she knows me. When I have something on my mind, there's no holding me back. But but I said, look, the way I said to her is let me just download the questionnaire. I'll fill it out and send it in. I might not qualify anyway. Maybe I'm too old, maybe whatever, And so I downloaded the questionnaire, filled it out. I sent it out on January 1st, which was kind of an interesting way to kick off the new year.
Yes.
And lo and behold, I don't know, it was about a month later, I guess, I don't know. I got an email back saying, yeah, let's have a talk. Let's set up a time to talk. So I ended up talking to Zubaida at the time. That was the transplant coordinator, and she went through the phone interview, and she said, "Sounds like you'd be a great candidate."
Wow.
And that's when it suddenly hits you. It's like, oh, I could do this.
Now, what did your wife say at this point? You got the call. Let's discuss.
Yeah, she wasn't impressed. I mean, she was very supportive, but not keen for me to do this, obviously, and I can get into some of the details, but the key thing that made it work is having her involved in every single appointment. Every doctor I went and saw, every test I had done, she came along with me. And it gave her the confidence to say, yeah, maybe this is actually okay. So, but yeah, that was what got the ball rolling for me.
So it was, in a nutshell, it was a movie. A movie just got the ball rolling, and because of this movie, you saved someone's life. My goodness.
Thank you to that movie. There you go.
Yes, exactly. We need to get that movie out there for a lot of other people to see, and then go ahead and donate as well. That's one.
Yeah. By the way, in that movie, it was way simpler than it was really.
Oh, yeah.
There were IVs in the arm, but they were both walking down the hallway the day of the surgery, I think it was. But anyway, it was
nice.
Yeah, usually it's simpler on television or in movies. So Len, whenever you had questions, or if you had doubts, or if you just needed someone to turn to, who would you turn to? We heard about Heather and who she spoke to, and she had a great support system. What about yourself? Besides your wife, was there anyone else that you had a mentor? Sarah was Heather's mentor. Did you have a mentor?
Yeah, Heather, absolutely. Heather was my mentor. I mean, we connected early on Facebook. It's you're obviously looking for someone who's gone through something similar to what you're about to go through.
Yes.
And Heather was exactly the same scenario, non-directed, not so far off in age, similar experience and similar family situation and all that. So Heather was absolutely invaluable. I mean, she, I laugh because, the day of the surgery, I'm kind of half incoherent in the hospital bed, probably 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And I'm texting her with, I don't know what, some silly things I probably said to her at the time, but she was there to say, yeah, you're good. You're good.
Don't eat the ice chips.
I think I'm going to rename this episode "There's Something About Heather."
Oh, you guys are so sweet.
That's the trend I'm hearing here. It's just there's something about Heather. So let's talk about surgery day. Let's talk about what was going through your mind, the different emotions. Like I said, at any point, did you think about this is too much? What am I thinking? What's going through your mind at this point, Heather?
So leading up to it, the testing, trips to Toronto, screening, very smooth, and never had any doubts. And then the night before, at the hotel just up the street from the hospital, that's when I had the, what the heck am I doing thoughts? Like, am I going to do this tomorrow? Like, this is insane. Is this happening? And I didn't think about, backing out, like not really. And they tell you constantly that you can, but that's when it like really, there was just something about the night before. But also like excitement and like emotions. And I think I guess like the recipients check in the night before. So I kind of had this notion, I mean, I didn't know for sure, but I had this notion that maybe my recipient was like already at Sick Kids. And of course they knew at that point that they had a donor, and it was like, it was just a lot of really big feelings. So, and they continued like the morning of surgery, but it just all went so smoothly, and they put that heated, lovely on you. And I think Dr. Grant, who's since retired, came by and said hello. And then Dr. Cottrell, who was my surgeon, came by. And yeah, it was just the most like big feeling, remarkably incredible experience. Yeah.
Especially when you talk about that blanket too. I had flashbacks of it myself.
So did you have the same, like the warm?
Yep. I did. I was like, wow, this feels good. Let me take this home afterwards. It was nice.
Yeah. Get one of these.
Right?
Yeah.
So have you heard from the recipient, or did you receive a letter or anything of the sort from the recipient?
It's been 4 years. We do have the option to write to each other, and neither one of us has. I have written, I don't know, 300-400 versions and never sent them. I also respect their privacy, and if they want to be in touch, I'm here for it. And if they don't want to be in touch, then that's okay too. In my mind, it was, I think of them, you can't not, right? You see the incision every day. So I think I send them love and strength at least once a day.
Yes.
And I hope that they're well. I do hope that we will be in touch. Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Would you ever think of making that first step? I mean, you said you've written all these letters, you just haven't sent it. Would you ever think that you'd come to that time and place a year from now, 2 years from now, what have you, that, you know what, I'm going to send this?
I have made that decision many times. Yes, I have made that decision. I have written many versions. I have gone online looking for liver cards. I hired an illustrator at one point to do a book. Yes, I have decided many times that it was time.
Wow.
It'll happen.
Yeah, when the time is right, nothing happens before it's time. I'm a firm 100% believer. Nothing happens before it's time. So it'll happen.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah.
What about you, Len? So let me know, how did you feel the day of surgery? What was going through your mind? Nervousness, head straight for the exit? Like, what was going through your mind?
I was actually surprised. I mean, leading up the weeks and days before the surgery, there's that nervousness, what am I doing? What am I getting into? And I honestly expected that the morning of surgery, that you arrive at the hospital, that you'd be, jittery, nervous, whatever. And the absolute opposite happened. I got totally calm, totally relaxed. It's like, okay, I'm ready for this. And, the Dr. Cottrell was my surgeon, and he came and we chatted for a little while I'm underneath that warm, cozy blanket that they gave us. And so he said, they'll take you into the operating room in a little while and whatnot. So sure enough, they roll me into the operating room, and the anesthesiologist is there, and some nurses are there, and we're laughing and joking, and it was just so relaxing, so almost fun. I mean, it was just no big deal at all. Yes. And I don't know why, because it shouldn't be. You wouldn't expect that, and I didn't expect that, but it was totally good. Really, really, and I mean, the staff make you feel so ready for it, so comfortable.
That's the way it should be. Honestly, that Zen feeling. You don't want to go in there all nervous and jittery and just, you know what I mean? So that's good that you had that experience. That's great.
For sure.
Now let's talk about after surgery, recovery. How long did it take for you to recover, Len?
So for the liver surgery, I was in the hospital for 4 days.
Okay.
And it was pretty straightforward. I mean, you know, we always the magic key to going home is pooping.
Mhm.
Use that word. We always talk about it.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, but that was what kept me in there for 4 days. That, you know, you got to
Okay.
get over that hurdle. And you know, it was pretty straightforward. It was, you know, there was no severe pain. It was actually quite reasonable that way.
Okay.
And then, you know, once I'm home, it was a couple of weeks that you're dealing with that pain of the incision and you know, having to shower properly and whatnot.
Mhm.
But yeah, within a matter of 4 or 5 weeks, you're pretty much back to normal. You know, it wasn't so bad.
Mhm. And what about yourself, Heather? What was recovery like?
Pretty smooth as well.
Good.
I'm not as tough as Len. So he had 4 days in the hospital. I had 6. And my pain was incredibly well managed. So and so was the nausea. So if you start to feel a bit nauseous, they have this magic injection, takes care of it right away.
Mhm.
And I had the most incredible nurse. I still think about her in the first, what is that, step down or anyway, for the first 2 days. I'm sure other people came, but it felt like she was constantly there for me. So Chantal, wherever you are, you're a superstar. She was really remarkable. And yeah, you know, so gradually, you know, got up walking and then, that first shower, can you all relate? Like this just,
Yes.
so,
Yes.
Oh,
it's
yes.
so good. It's so nice. And so on day 6, I got discharged and we stayed in Toronto for an evening at a hotel and then took the train home to Ottawa the next day. I had a surprising amount of energy when I got home. Like I thought, you know, taking the train home, I'm going to want to, you know, crash when I get home. But a friend was looking at a house and she's like, do you want to come? I'd love to see you. And I was like, yeah, let's go. So not that I drove, but went to see like a house with her. I was back at my desk part-time from home on day 11 post-surgery. And I felt like, Len, I would say I felt like 70% back to normal pretty quickly. And then it was the fatigue, like the fatigue was still there.
Mm-hmm.
But like I got most of the way there, I felt like pretty fast.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So let's talk about diet and exercise. So I know what it's like on my end receiving a kidney. So I know what I had to go through post-transplant and the diet and the exercise and what have you. Is there any type of restrictions on your end? Like since you've donated, is there any restriction in terms of diet and exercise for your post-transplant?
Not for a liver donor. Like medications in the short term, you don't go back to drinking alcohol right away if you drink alcohol. But you like otherwise life gets back to normal. But Len, is it as a double donor, does the kidney donation?
The only thing that I was told is don't take Tylenol, because I believe that's a hard one on the kidney. And because you only have one kidney, you know, you want to be careful with it, but you know, take Advil instead.
Okay.
But otherwise, no dietary restrictions either.
Good. So your stories are amazing. Divine intervention, or do you think it was some type of spiritual awakening? Do you think it was, you know, the hand of God coming down and guiding you in the right direction? Like, what do you think is the backbone behind all of this? Do you feel it was just sheer luck? You just happened to be watching that movie and Heather, you just decided, you know what, I'm going to do this. Like, what caused this? Do you feel there was, you know what I mean, divine intervention? Do you feel it was just sheer luck? What caused this, in your opinion? Let's go with Heather, because there is something about Heather. So let's go with Heather.
You guys are so sweet. I really attribute, you know, media, people being willing to share their stories. Because people were willing to share their stories, I would see stories in the media, I would see stories on social media, and that kept planting the seed, you know, that clearly kept growing because I was paying attention to stories long before I decided to give. And so I really, you know, give my hats off to people who are brave enough to share. You know, it takes a lot of courage to say this is the position I'm in, and this is something that I need to save my life. And so all of those people who had the courage to share their stories, I think that's what eventually led me to donate.
Gotcha. And that's beautiful. The little seeds were just planted in there and just came to the forefront when you least expected it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
What about you, Len?
For me, it's, I don't know, I guess if I can say it, I think I've always been a kind person, a generous person. You know, I always try to do right by people, and you know, my little motto is I always try to make the world a better place. And I don't think to me, there's nothing, you know, bigger than that, but it's just, I saw that opportunity pop up in that movie. And I thought, wow, you know, maybe I could do that. And when I started it, I wasn't thinking about doing it for a child. You know, obviously it's a man donating to a woman, and I thought, that's great, I could do that. You know, but as you go through the evaluation, you know, you're in discussions about what type of donation you'd like to make, whether you want to do, you know, the 20% and get off a little bit easier, perhaps, you know, as far as recovery, or do 80% to an adult. And I guess I chickened out in a sense with the 20%, but you know, the smaller portion would go to a child, which, you know, that was certainly a nice feeling too. But yeah, to me, that's kind of where it came from for me. It was just an opportunity to do good for somebody.
And the 20% is just as invaluable as the 80%. So regardless, you gave and you helped save a life. There's no amount that could, you know, oh, yours is too small or yours is, no, you've done something that's so regardless.
There's also this really cool, sorry to interrupt, have we talked about, Janine, the very cool research about the size of the amygdala of kidney donors who give to strangers?
No, let's talk about that.
So Dr. Abigail Marsh, who's at Georgetown University, has done this research that compares the amygdala response and size of psychopaths versus people who give kidneys to strangers.
Okay.
And it's also a book, Fear Factor. But essentially in her research, she, in a functional MRI, looks at, so there are these standardized cue cards of facial expressions. And so there's like the standardized, this is happy, this one's sad, this one's fear. And under functional MRI, she looks at the response of psychopaths to all of these expressions, including fear. And when they see the fear card, nothing happens in the amygdala. When a person who's given a kidney to a stranger sees the fear card compared to all the other expressions under functional MRI, their amygdala lights up. And this is significant because the amygdala is partially how we process fear and distress in strangers. So this maybe helps to explain why a person is willing to consider giving, not just to a direct family member, but to a stranger.
See, okay. Honestly, when you started this, I'm like, where's she going with this? But that is a good story. I like that. And I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So,
and the amygdala is actually on average 8% larger in people who have given kidneys to strangers. And she is now, she has been for a couple of years, expanding her research into liver donors who give to strangers as well.
Wow. And that actually makes sense because I remember my donor, her name is Christy. And she said, when she saw my ad, and in the ad, it was a small ad that I just posted. And it said that I'd like someone to donate to help save my life so I could be there for my daughter. Because, you know, according to the doctors, 16, by the time she's 16, I'm out of here. Right. And so she saw that in the ad saying that I want to be here for my daughter, and it just drove these emotions and the thought of, me not being there for my daughter when she's 16. There's so much going on in a teenager's life. And it just got that, you know what I mean? It just kind of drove that in her. And once again, the fear of me not being there, that makes so much sense now. The fear of me not being there for my daughter, well, she was 12 at the time, but when she turned 16, her mom's gone. She couldn't handle that. So she's like, you know what? Let me, like yourself, Len, she's like, I'm going to do it. And yourself as well, Heather. I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? So that's a good story. I'm glad you shared that. I'm glad you shared that here with us because I had no idea.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So we've shared your story. You both are amazing people for doing this. A hats off to anyone who's donated because it takes a lot. It takes a lot. And sometimes you have the negative, feedback from people. Why are you doing this? What's wrong with you? You have the stereotypes of, if you donate, it's going to reduce your lifespan. But none of that has entered your minds. None of that even crossed your path. You stood strong. You go behind your husband's back, fill out the forms, and I praise you guys. That's really big. And I'm really proud of you too. So I'm very happy that you took the time to save lives and you took the time to share your story here on the Green Table Talk. And you guys are just amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for what you're doing and for bringing stories to people that maybe encourages them to donate or knows that someone else here understands them, that you understand also what they're going through and that there are people that are willing to step up. So thank you also for everything that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for that.
Well said,
this
Heather.
right here, it's just planting that seed. Like you said, it's planting that seed. Someone's going to see it and it's going to make a difference in someone else's life. So, sorry, what were you saying, Len?
No, I just say well said, Heather. But it's all about raising awareness. Making people, or helping people understand just how doable organ donation is. Living organ donation is. It's not rocket science. It's doable. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah, completely doable. We just have to get over that fear and lack of knowledge as well. That's where education comes in, and help people realize that yes, you can literally help save a life. It's like within our power. It's in us to do that. So we're starting right here. We're sharing the story. So I'm happy that you guys are here on the Green Table Talk.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
So now this is when I share a little nugget of knowledge with our audience. And it might sound kind of cliche, but the both of you just drove this into me. This is the nugget of knowledge for today. Sharing is caring. It's pure and simple. Sharing is caring. And the both of you have done that magnificently. And so thank you once again for doing this.
Thank you for what you're doing. Thanks for having us.
Excellent.
Thank you, Janine.
You're welcome. And thank you for joining us on the Green Table Talk. We'll see you again next time. Take care.